Welcome to Let's Talk with Shay Marville. Shay is an internationally certified yoga and meditation teacher, a corporate wellness pioneer, and founder of the Limitless School of Human Relations. Let's Talk is a podcast about better human relations, growth, connection, and hope through conversations and compassion. Hey, Shay, let's talk.
My friends, welcome to the Let's Talk podcast. As you can hear, it is a new day. That was JC McDonald. He is an international globe-trotting journalist, broadcaster, MC, and DJ. I had an opportunity to interview him last week. I'll share that interview next week, but we coaxed him out of semi-retirement to join us in the pod, and I'm so grateful. I am so grateful for so many things, and so grateful that you all are listening, that you are subscribing, that you are sharing the podcast, that you've taken a chance on this show. And then there are the guests. The guests have been unbelievable. Some of the stories they have shared, the vulnerability, the successes, and the failures. I think I am just completely overwhelmed by how much they've given. And one of the things that every guest has agreed to do is come back to the show. And you might be asking, why do I ask every guest if they're willing to come back? The reason is that I would like to build an incubator think tank with Let's Talk, where once a month, one of our guests, who is a specialist and thought leader in their area, comes on and shares with the subscribers an idea, and we riff, we talk and share ideas and play. I think this could be quite interesting. So we're going to start in May, and I will announce the list of guest presenters, but I think this is a really fun way for us to get to know one another and continue to grow and build the community. A lot of things can be said about this moment in our collective history, and I don't have to say them right now. But there are things that have come out of the series of events that have led us to this moment. And one of the things that I value so deeply, I don't know how you feel about it and if you see it the same way, but it is the power of connection. It is the value of connection. It is the evidence that is so clear that being connected, being purposeful in our connections, being present with other humans, being in the presence of other humans is essential to our health and our well-being. It can no longer be denied as a nice or a thing that is nice to have or nice to do. It is essential to our systematic health, our mental health, our health as a community and as a society, to be with one another. It is the way we learn. It is the way we grow. It is the way we mentor. It's everything. And it is essential that we understand the relationship between social health, emotional well-being, and loneliness, and feeling separate and dislocated. And of course, there's this strange irony that in a time when we are so connected and we have all these different platforms that connect us, that people have never been more lonely. And yes, some people can say that, well, we never used to measure loneliness. Well, maybe we didn't know how to measure it before. Maybe we didn't understand for decades that it could be measured. But now it's impossible to look away because it is clear, we see it in our data, the relationship between loneliness and health outcomes, poor health outcomes, the relationship between loneliness and feelings of depression and the experience of depression. And I think that one of the things that the pandemic has shown us, has put this microscope on for us, is that things that we took for granted, simple day-to-day experiences of seeing another person, looking them in the face, being looked at, being held, being hugged, are just part of our biological need as human beings. And I'm glad that we know this. I'm not glad for the reason it happened, but I'm grateful for us being able to talk about it and share it with one another. And my hope and my goal, my true goal with this podcast is that it becomes a space where we can have conversations about things that are difficult. We can have conversations about things that are beautiful. We can have conversations about things that we don't understand or we don't know about. Or we can hear from people that we wouldn't be speaking to normally. And that we can find commonality, that we can learn to listen in a deep way. I think that you can listen for understanding. I often find that we can listen for judgment. We're listening so that we can evaluate. And one of the real values of mindfulness is learning to be less judgmental. We can be discerning when we listen, but when we try to listen to one another for understanding, where is this person coming from? What is their experience? How does their experience inform the person they are now and what they're talking about? How does my experience enter into that conversation? I think you could end up getting a very powerful interaction and change that comes from deeply, deeply paying attention plus listening. So that's one of the things that I would like to achieve with this podcast. I would like this podcast space to contribute to ways of doing that. I hope you do as well. I also believe that it is through conversation and through relationship and through trying to understand one another on a deep level without judgment all the time that we become limitless in our thinking, in our imagining. And I'm not talking about a kind of limitlessness that is about material consumption or power or control. I'm talking about this idea that no matter what is happening, there is a mental space in each of us. There's a mind and heart space in each of us that allows us to visualize and experience a world that is internal and use that world and that experience that is internal, that visualization, to come up with and create new ways of thinking and new ways of seeing others. And one of the reasons I love the guests that have been on is that I feel like they've all shown us a different part of what we can be and what exists in this world. You know, you often hear about the power of mentorship and how important it is to mentor others and to be mentored. And I think there's a lot of mentorship going on right now. It's unconscious though, and it's through social media. And we are being influenced by people that don't always have good intentions for themselves, nevertheless, good intentions towards you. But they actually influence us and they impact our thinking. And so if we can start to be more conscious about what we are thinking about and who we are thinking with and who we are allowing to come into our thinking geography, I think it will impact how we're feeling and who is influencing us and who is mentoring us deliberately or accidentally. So again, I hope the podcast becomes a place where we're generating ideas and good thoughts and good feelings and good vibrations, even though we're also talking about things that are difficult and challenging and not always agreeing. And I think there's been a lot of studies recently about the value of connection, the health value of connection, and how feeling like you're connected to others, feeling as though you have a purpose and that your life has meaning, not just for yourself, but in relationship to others, creates a sense of health and well-being that you wouldn't have otherwise. So my hope is that the Let's Talk podcast evolves into that space and into that place. My hope and my intention is that the incubator groups with guest speakers becomes a place that you all, the listeners and subscribers, can participate in. And what it will become, I can't say at the moment because we have yet to bake it. But I do feel really convicted about this notion of being limitless, this notion that through our imagination and through being in each other's presence, even if we can't be there physically right now, that we can learn from one another through talking, sharing, and that podcasts like this podcast, that this podcast becomes one of our collective tools to learn to listen more and to grow in our ability to be aware. I don't know if you've heard of this concept of this, this idea of meta awareness, that, when you stop and you pay attention, you grow awareness inside of yourself. You begin to notice. You notice the world outside of you and the world inside of you. And that helps us to become more compassionate, more empathetic, more understanding of ourselves and of others. And that is key to building a cohesive and integrated, diverse society. I also feel that when we start to think of being limitless, not from the position of consumption and power, but from the position of expanding ideas, the position of growing through infirmity, growing through trauma and tragedy, that we can survive things that we never imagined we could survive, like this pandemic, that we become more resilient through our day-to-day action, through the staying present, through the staying purposeful, through the looking after others, that we start to always find new doors and new windows of experience. And that every time we hear of a new experience, our experience changes. Every time we hear of a new experience, our experience changes. And that together we become something else. And together we become something new. You know, right now, I don't know about you, but there are weeks, right, and days where you feel like you're reliving the same day. This idea of having the Groundhog Day over and over again. And I think it makes what we're going through challenging. However, when we talk about it and we see that that feeling, that sensation is common for so many of us, we also learn about our similarities and our commonalities. So, my friends, I hope that we can grow our awareness of one another, our connection with one another. I hope that we can use the podcast and the incubator think tank to have important conversations and build strong relationships. And that we can come up with new ideas and share those ideas with each other so that we are stronger and healthier as a society, and that we are less lonely because we are connected to one another. I look forward to what we will do together, what we will make together and make of this space together. I think we have to have an open mind to what will come and be limitless in our openness about what we can imagine together. I'm so excited about the guests that we have coming up, like Sang Kim, who is an author, a chef, a restaurateur, a really extraordinary writer. Bonnie Hillman, who is a business leader and entrepreneur in the sponsorship and fundraising arena here in Canada. Julie Cole, who is the CEO and co-founder of Mabel Labels. Angelica Lisk Hahn, one of the first Black women to be a stunt performer and coordinator. She is known around the world. Broadcaster and journalist Ron McLean. And then, of course, J.C. McDonald, and so many more. My friends, we have some really dynamic guests coming up, and I am just elated that I get to do this, I get to share this, and I can't wait to hear your feedback and for us to grow together from this, through this. My friends, thank you for joining me in the pod today in Let's Talk, and I can't wait to check in with you again very soon. Ciao for now.
Thank you for joining the conversation. To learn more about Limitless and Shay and her corporate training, life coaching, keynote engagements, and her most recent podcast, go to www.coachshaymarville.com.